It's good to be back with Parahumans. Oh, how I missed this. And that might sound a little sarcastic or a little facetious, and genuinely, it's not meant to be. I had such a good time reading Worm. Yes, there were some arcs I didn't like. I think the ones I really didn't like were like 6, 22, and I think it was 24? It's like 24 or 25, because one of them is the behemoth fight, which is like absolutely top tier, just absolute cinema. And then I think it's the one right after, which is the time skip that I didn't care for. So yeah, behemoth is 24, 25 is the time skip, and then 26 is the SNK, etc., etc. But those are some that come to mind that I just did not care for. But the vast majority of the rest of the story I thought was absolutely fantastic. I had put off reading Ward for about a year now, because it's been about a year since I finished Worm, for a couple reasons. Number one, Worm is a very long story, and I knew as much as I loved this, and I did, given that Ward is like 400,000 words longer, I kind of don't want to jump straight into it. I want to take a break. I kind of want to have some time to digest Worm, but to also do some other stuff before I jump back into Ward. And also, like I've said previously, I want to do a whole thing with Project Horizons. And I did, and then I stopped, and then I realized I got what I needed out of that. So I think I'm ready to get back into Ward. I guess I'm ready to get back into Parahumans. I'm ready to get into Ward proper. So just to give a brief update of where I am right now, as you can tell by the name of the video, I've read Glowworm, and again, this is all the audiobook, so I've listened to it, but it's still the same text. But I've listened to Glowworm. I'm part way through Daybreak. I think I'm at about 2.5 hours-ish. The part where I'm at right now is, I'm probably just gonna keep calling Victoria Vicky. I don't know why. I just like doing that. Vicky is fighting. I don't remember if we've heard the name of this group, but it's part 1. So it's the stuff with Fume Hood. She's in the nursery right now, and gosh, that's just so creepy. But she's dealing with Nursery and Snag, who hit her with something to mess with her emotions, and that's where I'm at, is her kind of dealing with that and wrestling with that. So before I get into talking about Glowworm specifically, I want to talk about what I know about Ward going in, aside from the fact that, yeah, it's 400,000 words. I keep wanting to say pages, but that's not quite it. But it's significantly longer than Worm, which is also significantly really long, which I'm not gonna lie is very intimidating. Just looking at the audiobook, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a few less videos than there were previously. I think this is 28 and Worm is 31. But there's not 28 arcs of Ward. There's 20. I guess 21 if you include Glowworm. But several of the arcs are so long. They're split into multiple videos. It's this arc is 10 hours, and then this arc is 6 hours. That 10-hour one's really long. What do you mean it's the same arc in 2 videos? Oh no, that's a non-zero number. And I just said, I won't lie, I find that kind of intimidating going in, but I am still looking forward to it. I believe I said this before. I feel very cautiously optimistic. The optimism is, well, I really liked the first one, so I'm assuming I'm really going to like the second one too. The caution is, I've heard very mixed things about Ward. Not a lot of specifics, and I'll talk about the specifics here in a second. And I feel like I should go ahead and say this. I feel like this is understood, and I'll probably make sure to say it in the description as well. This is full spoilers. It's obviously going to be full spoilers for Worm when you're talking about Ward. It'll be full spoilers for whatever arc I am talking about, all previous arcs in the story, and things that I know are going to happen. And I'll probably try to highlight those when I talk about them, if you're where I'm at but you don't know things that I've heard. But I've heard kind of mixed things. I think the overall sentiment I've heard is it's good, but it's maybe not necessary, or because I was talking to a friend about it the other day. He's like, yeah, like I read Ward, I liked Ward. I definitely didn't like it as much as Worm, and I think its biggest problem is it has to deal with the consequences of Worm, which I find really interesting, but it kind of just sounds like the story it's trying to tell. I guess like the vibe that I got is that the story is trying to tell about Victoria and I guess the members of Breakthrough. Like, this is an interesting story, but because it's also having to deal with all the post Gold Morning stuff, that I guess it like can overcomplicate things, or it's like, man, like this is really cool, but seeing some of this other stuff, it's a bit much. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I might read it and go like, no, I loved seeing like all the consequences of Worm, and I really liked Vicky's story, or maybe I just like the consequences of Worm, but I don't end up liking her story. We'll see how that goes. But so some of the things that I do know. I know who most of the members of Breakthrough are. Like I've looked at like the page, so like I've seen the names before, but I don't know a lot of specifics aside from what I've read in Glowworm. Like there's a few things. Like number one, I know that Ashley is one of the damsel in distress clones from the SNK arc. Like that sounds really interesting. Like I kind of want to see how that plays out. I know Vicky gets a name change, but I know I've seen it, but I just don't remember off the top of my head what her new name is. But she doesn't go by Glory Girl anymore. Honestly, that's kind of most of what I know. There's a character death in Breakthrough that I know, and I will just go ahead and say who I know, because for all I know, most of them end up dying, but there's only one that I'm aware of, and that's Ashley. And I'm aware of it because I was looking at Parahumans memes, and I was like, cool, like I finished Worm, like I can look at some of these and not get spoiled, and then very quickly saw a major character death in War, and I was like, oh, well, whoops, I guess I can't look at any memes until I read both stories, and then I'll read both stories, look at Parahumans memes, and then get spoiled on like Pact or Twig before I inevitably probably end up reading it. But so that is the one major character death that I know. Like I said, I don't know if other members of the crew die, if she's the only one, but I know it happens. I know Lung is, I think I read he's like one of Teacher's thralls. And if you see my Worm videos, yeah, I'm a really big Lung fan. I just think he's really cool. I like this guy. And also, if you read my Worm videos, I really didn't care about Teacher. I think the idea is interesting. You know, this is a dude who can give other people powers, like kind of more minor powers, but he can, and he makes them his thralls, so he can kind of get his own like cult going pretty quickly. And I think that's cool. But it felt like the story was trying to really set up Teacher to be a problem. But because of all the stuff that's happening in Worm, he's introduced too late to be a threat in that story, and it feels like he's just being set up for the sequel. But because there's so much shit going on in Worm at that time, like dealing with the Endbringers, and then the SNK, and then Gold Morning, like, I don't really care about setting up a threat for part 2 when we're at the climax of part 1. And so it's like, man, this is something that's like potentially cool, but I felt like was sort of just eating screen time. And now he gets to be in charge of one of my favorite characters. I'm not crazy about that, but maybe when I read it, I'm like, no, it happens in a way that works for me or makes sense. We'll see. I know that there's a point where Amy shows up again. I don't know if it's like a one arc thing, if she's a recurring character, or if she ends up being a major antagonist. One thing I have heard is that a lot of people aren't fans of the way that she's written, where she comes off as a lot more selfish than she was previously. And again, if you've seen my Worm videos, you know, Amy is my favorite character in the story. That does not mean I think she's necessarily a good person. That doesn't mean I'm like, oh no, like I agree with her. She's absolved of all the things that she's done. It means I think she is the most interesting person in the story. And, like, I think Taylor is a fascinating character. But just her whole... I think she has a really cool power. And the way her power compels her to help people, even though she doesn't necessarily want to, I think is a really interesting dilemma. And just that whole thing with her dad of not Marquis, like her other dad, what's his name, like Flashbang or something like that. But it's like I think it's like there's an issue with his brain, and the family knows she can fix it, and she knows she can fix it. But that's her one rule, is like, I don't mess with people's brains, I don't mess with people's heads, because I can see the slippery slope that would take me down. That is something that scares me. I can't do it. And her family understanding, but judging her hard the entire time, and her having to live with that. Like, it's so interesting. And, like, just that whole interlude with Bonesaw is so good. Like, she is my favorite character in the story. And at least for me, I really did feel like as it was going on, because from what I remember, originally she was very black and white. Like, no, if you're a good person, you're a good person. If you're bad, like, you're a good person or you're a bad person. And her talking to Taylor, I think it's specifically when she's healing Taylor at the end of the Leviathan fight. And they're kind of talking about that mentality. And Taylor's like, I don't know if I'm a good person, but I don't think I'm exactly a bad person either. I felt like by the end of the story, Amy kind of understood that there's shades of gray. She herself being a shade of gray, or like her actual dad is like, yeah, this is a guy who's in the birdcage. He's not a good person. But there are genuinely good things about him. And I'm kind of understanding that the world is more complicated than I was seeing it as. But from what I understand, she almost kind of doubles down on her you're either a good person or a bad person philosophy in Ward. And like, that could be totally wrong. I maybe like misunderstood what I read, or the person who like typed that didn't see how it was going. We'll see when we get there. But it's like, man, I don't know if I'm excited for that, but we'll see how it goes. So I think that's pretty much everything I know about Ward going into it. I guess it's just like, I'm understanding that Teacher is going to be a major antagonist. And I think I heard the Seamerg is going to be a major antagonist, which is great because I love the Endbringers. What happened to the Endbringers at the end of War? Like, obviously Behemoth died. I think Leviathan was killed too. I think he died during Gold Morning. The Seamerg survived. I think the later Endbringers also survived. Excuse me. Maybe one of them got killed, and like with Eidolon not around, I don't know like what they're up to. If they're just chilling and dormant. Like, obviously, again, like the Seamerg is doing something. But anyways, we'll see. We'll figure that all out as we go. So Glowworm. Glowworm it's both Ward Arc 0 and I guess in a sense Worm Arc 32, because it's sort of an extended epilogue, but also a sort of prologue. It's the bridge between the two stories. And it's several PHO like threads and posts. And knowing some of the things that I know that I already talked about, essentially it's kind of introducing the members of Breakthrough and some of the stuff that they're going to be dealing with and going through. You have Victoria, trying to go to college. Seems like she's trying to get her life together, but she keeps not getting accepted, even though she's trying her best. So you can see that she's going to be getting frustrated. Capricorn had a previous team, and there's some sort of beef between him and another member of the team. I don't know what that beef entails. I don't know if it's something where you never actually find out, kind of like Tattletale and Faultline. Was it Faultline? I'm 90% sure it was Faultline. It might have been with someone else. Or like, there's beef here, and you never find out why, which I do think is pretty funny. So I don't know if it's something like that, or it's like, no, you find out. It's very clear what he did to her, or she did to him, or they've both done to each other. We see that with Sveta, you have the other irregulars really hate her for siding with Weld and not letting them get their revenge on Dr. Mother. And also blame her for taking the revenge away because she killed Dr. Mother. You have Kenzie, who was a previous ward. She was not in Brockton Bay. I don't know where she was, but she was a previous ward, and the other members of her team are distant from her. And I don't know if that's just because what they kind of implied was like, you know, like she was a kid, she was kind of a bit of a brat, so no one really interacted with her, or is it like, no, like she did things and wasn't aware of the things that she was doing? Like, I don't necessarily know. It might have just been she was kind of a brat, she was kind of a weird kid, no one really interacted with her, so no one feels that close. There was this one bit that I did find really funny. It's they're like in their group chat, and Sveta says something, and Kenzie's like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see you." That Sveta hugs Kenzie. I mean, they're using their like parahuman online names. But, like, Sveta hugs Kenzie, dies, and that made me laugh pretty hard. And then everyone was like, "Kenzie, you can't say that." And Sveta's like, "No, I thought it was funny. It's okay." Like that was gold. I absolutely loved that. There's that whole bit with Ashley being like this edgelord online. And then at one point it just says, "I hate the internet." And like that made me laugh really hard. Just from seeing some of the memes that I have seen, it's like, yes, I know she dies and that sucks. But a lot of the memes I saw, it's like, she sounds like she's just going to be the best character in the story. I'm really looking forward to her. And yeah, just that one bit made me laugh really hard. She's like, you know what? When this inevitably doesn't work and I go back to being a villain, Kenzie, I want you to work for me. I'll hire you. I'll pay you. Like, we'll be great villains together. Kenzie's like, sure, dog. Like, I'm in, I guess. I really liked that. And there were a couple other members. I don't remember their names. They also might be the same person. I don't remember. I think they were two separate ones. One of them definitely seemed like he was kind of more of a loner. Like because I think this is the one that Kenzie was trying to go on a date with, and he's like, that's not a good idea. Trust me, bro. And there was another one who, I think he was part of a multi-trigger event, and they were talking about the kiss kill phenomenon, and I don't remember that from Worm. Because I don't think we talked about multi-triggers very often. Obviously, there was the merchant party and Scrub, but aside from Scrub, and I think they talk about how, like, Endbringer events definitely tend to cause a lot of people to trigger, but I don't know if those are necessarily multi-triggers. Like, Imp, I'm pretty sure, like, triggered during Leviathan, or if it was maybe a little bit before and we just didn't see it. But her power isn't really, like, related to that. But, I mean, I don't know how Scrub's is really... Well, no, Scrub didn't trigger. I think it was he got the cauldron juice, didn't he? It might have been that, because I think it was like he had to do a thing to win the formula, or maybe it was he triggered without the formula. I think he drank the cauldron juice, so then that wouldn't even count as a trigger event. But anyways, apparently this, one of them was part of a multi-trigger event, and the people that he triggered with are really trying to kill him. And I guess part of his story is going to be understanding the power that he has and trying not to die. Some other things that happened that I found really interesting. Number one, just kind of talking about the world and the anti-cape sentiment. That there's a lot of people who are just like, look, they didn't save us. That was kind of the whole point. That was the social contract that we had. We as humans are going to accept the fact that there are capes. We're kind of going to let them do their thing. Not that we really have much of a choice. I mean, even if there was, like, strong anti-cape legislation and blah, 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 it's like, well, yeah, what are you going to do when Taylor decides, you know what? I'm not going to listen to your rules anymore. As we learned in Worm, there's not a lot you can do. What are you going to do when Jack Slash decides to become a problem? There's really nothing you can do. But the social contract was, we will let y'all do your thing, so long as you follow specific rules, you know, if you help us, you know, blah, 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 blah. And after Gold Morning, you clearly didn't do a good enough job. Otherwise, the world wouldn't have ended. Which, for people who don't really know what happened during Gold Morning, and it sounds like that's most people, that kind of makes sense. But as someone who read those several arcs, like, yeah, they did the best they could. It might not have been much, but that's not really much you can do against Big Z. But there's a lot of anti-Cape sentiments in general because of the amnesty, with a lot of villains being forgiven. People are very uncomfortable with that. It's like, look, like, this is someone, because I think someone specifically talks about bitch. It's like, this is something that she did to me. Like, I can't, like, walk anymore because of what her stupid dogs did to my leg. But she's just forgiven. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. It's not like there's a lot more villains than there are heroes now. And even the heroes that there aren't exactly popular right now. They specifically talk about the irregulars and how Weld and his character is being highly questioned. There was this one Case 53 that was talking about, like, his trigger event, like, he's become, like, this mold person. I don't know if this is a member of Breakthrough. It didn't sound like it, but just him talking about his story and what his life is like, I'm like, this is genuinely making me really sad. We are so back. It's like, this is really good. This is really interesting. And it's one of my favorite things about Worm, and I say this with no disrespect toward Taylor, because Taylor is one of my favorite characters in the story. But just those moments where you go away from her and just be like, here is a character going through their life, or, like, explaining their day, like the entire Traveler's interlude, Gregor the Snail's interlude. Like, this is, like, oh right, this is such a cool world. I really love the story as is. But if Worm really was just like an anthology series, that was, maybe you're still focusing on the big plot of, like, Cauldron and the Endbringers, and then, Zion and everything. But even if it's just like, here's a little arc about this place and this person and how they got their powers and all the craziness involved, I would still really, really enjoy it, because this world is so cool and it's filled with so many interesting people. Not always good people, but interesting people. Which I think is probably the best way to lead into what was my absolute favorite part of the interlude, and that was the ending. The interlude of Glowworm. And it's that last chapter, and it's between Victoria and Madison. And I believe I talked about this while talking about Worm. I was like, what happened to her? Because Taylor had 3 main bullies. We know what happened with Emma. Like, we get her interlude, so we understand what happened. We get Arc 20, which is the confrontation at the school, which is great, and I love it. And then we find out that event broke her so hard, she died in Gold Morning. Which, I mean, a lot of people died in Gold Morning without that, but it's like she refused to leave her room or go outside, and then so when Brockton Bay got destroyed, she was lost with it. We know what happened with Sophia. And Madison just kind of disappeared. And it made me wonder, I was like, so did she just, like, die during Leviathan? Did she and her family just leave the city and never come back? Like, both of those are believable. But I don't know. I feel like this was a missed opportunity because, yeah, like, we saw and got a lot with the other 2, with the main bullies, but not with the third one, especially because this is the one who always seemed to be, and not that she gets a lot of screen time, but seemed to be the least malicious about it. The one who, like, during that parent-teacher conference was the one to kind of go, are we the bad guys? Like, I knew that what I was doing wasn't good, but I never really took the time to think about how bad it was or how far I had gone. And something I had thought, I think I said this at some point, is I really wish she had taken Charlotte's place. And, like, nothing against Charlotte, I do like her, and I really like her role in the story, but that idea of Taylor finding someone who she knows from school, And with Charlotte, it was specifically like, this is someone who could have helped me and did it. Because I think she said like Charlotte reached out to her at one point and then stopped. But the idea of it being one of her bullies, the one who was the least bad, but still one of her bullies, and Taylor having the option to say, I'm going to let them do whatever they want to you because you did whatever you wanted to me. Or the choice to, I'm going to be the better person and I'm going to save you. Because if this were any other person, I would save them. I don't want to. And I hate that I don't want to, but I'm going to do it. Very similar to that scene with Mr. Gladly and Leviathan, which again, Leviathan is my favorite arc. Like I have it like neck and neck with Coils, but it's so good because of so many of those moments that just like really come together. Anyways. And then Charlotte deciding like, I am going to stay with you. I am going to help you. Taylor having to deal with one of her bullies and really starting to see them as a person and seeing how that person grows and changes, especially because Madison does say, which is something I did end up learning before I finished Worm, is that she wanted to be a teacher. Or maybe it was either before I finished Worm or it was not long after I finished Worm, but well before I started Ward, I learned that she wanted to be a teacher. It's like, she should have just been Charlotte because Charlotte's whole thing is looking after the kids. And I could see that, like, her looking after the kids, her being really good with the kids, maybe even Taylor noticing. It's like, yeah, for all the beef that we have, she does a really good job here. And as Madison does say to Victoria, it's like, it's kind of one of the reasons I do want to be a teacher, is it's a combination of, I want to help kids like Taylor, but I also want to, guide kids like me to not do those kinds of things. And I found that really interesting. Just her also talking about, she's like, when I found out who Skitter was, I realized my friends and I are the reason she triggered. Meaning, we're responsible for all the things that she's done. Now, there's a point where, like, I'm not responsible for that. But it's clear it wouldn't have happened without me. As she says, she's like, it's like I pushed a rock down a hill and eventually that rock killed somebody. And it was like way further down the road, like down the hill than when I first pushed it. So maybe it's not exactly my fault. But I also, like, the rock wouldn't have been there if I hadn't pushed. And I don't know how responsible I should feel. I don't know when I'm supposed to forgive myself. I don't know if I'm supposed to forgive myself. And Victoria's response by the end of it essentially being, you don't forgive yourself. Because the moment you do, you stop taking accountability for what happened. You can be better. Like, use that guilt and use that shame to be a better person and to help other people be better. Like, if you do become a teacher, I hope you make sure that your kids don't do the things that you did, and that when you see kids that need help, you help them every time. But, like, it's not my place to tell you when you can forgive or how to forgive, because maybe you shouldn't. I wouldn't. I don't forgive, and I don't forget. And given what happened to Vicky during Worm, I don't blame her. I'm like, yeah, I kind of get it. And it sounds like that's kind of going to be one of the big themes of Ward going forward, is forgiveness. And when you should, if you should, and I guess, like, at what point should you forgive and kind of let go of that? I think it was Mandela described, I think he described, like, bitterness as like it's like swallowing poison hoping the other person is going to die. Like, at what point do you stop swallowing that poison? At what point do you just say, I'm gonna let it go? But is there a point where you can get there? Is there a point where you should get there? Are there people who deserve to be forgiven? And even then, is it that I'm going to, like, by forgiveness, are you really saying what you did was okay and I'm going to move forward with that? Or are you saying, I'm not going to give you that power over me anymore? Like, I forgive you, meaning I'm not going to spend my time hating you anymore. I'm not going to spend my time thinking about you anymore, but we're done. Or is it, what you did is okay, we can move forward like nothing happened? Or is it what you did wasn't okay, but I'll give you another chance? I feel like that's going to be a major theme of the story going forward. And I do find that to be an interesting one. It's a very nuanced situation. Or like it can lead to a lot of nuanced situations. So I'm very much looking forward to it. It is good to be back.